Welcome to my channel, where every story is written to pull you deeper with each word, where every whisper carries a secret, and where love is never simple. This story begins on a night that was supposed to be silent, a night where the stars burned a little brighter over the black skies of an alien world. He had spent years convincing himself that the feelings he carried were just confusion, that the soft glances, the long silences, and the quiet pull between them were nothing more than memories of a childhood they shared under two moons. But the moment he stepped closer, everything shifted. She didn't move away. She just stared at him with eyes that shimmered like liquid gold, as if waiting for something only he could give. The tension between them had been growing slowly like a spark buried under snow. She was not just any alien. She was someone who had grown up with him, someone whose heartbeat had always matched his when the nights were long and cold. The air was quiet except for the low hum of the wind outside the glass walls of the station. She tilted her head slightly, a soft smile ghosting her lips, one that always made him forget how to breathe. He tried to speak, to step back, but his body betrayed him. The space between them vanished like it had been waiting to disappear. Her scent was different tonight, warmer, pulling him closer, drowning him in a feeling he didn't have a name for. He had always known she wasn't human. Her skin was pale, almost silver under the station lights, and her voice carried a softness that could melt stone. But tonight, she was more than just alien, she was dangerous in the way that beauty can be when it holds secret. Her fingers brushed against his hand, light as a sigh, and a soft pulse ran through him like electricity. She leaned in and whispered his name, but it sounded different in her voice, like it had always belonged to her. A sound outside made him turn, but when he looked back, her gaze had deepened, darker, sharper, as if she had made a decision. The night wrapped around them like a curtain, shutting the rest of the world out. His breath was uneven, and every heartbeat was louder than the last. She moved closer, so close that the air between them was warm and shared. Her hand slid up to his jaw, not hurried, not shy. She whispered something, so quiet that he almost thought he imagined it, but the words hit him like a strike. She told him she had always known, that the bond between them had never been just a friendship, that their kind didn't choose, they felt. And she had felt it for a very long time. His pulse jumped. The mystery he had been running from was now standing right in front of him, looking at him with soft defiance. Everything slowed down, the wind outside fading into silence, the lights dimming until there was nothing but her and the sound of two breaths merging. He whispered her name back, and her smile deepened, no longer soft but certain. She leaned forward, her forehead resting against his, and in that single, quiet moment, the weight of everything they had hidden broke apart. Her whisper had unlocked something between them that could no longer be unspoken. He realized he was not alone in his feelings. She had been waiting for him to take one step, just one, and he had finally done it. Their world would never be the same again. The bond between them was not just a secret anymore. It was a fire that burned under their skin, alive and real. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or what their people would say, but in that silent room, nothing else mattered. Her lips brushed his as softly as a breath, not demanding, just promising. And when she pulled back, the golden light in her eyes didn't fade. It grew stronger, as if the universe had been waiting for this moment too. Thank you for listening to this story. If this moment stirred something inside you, if the whispers of their bond linger in your mind, make sure to subscribe for more stories that hold both heart and heat. This is just the beginning, and the next story might take you somewhere even deeper. He stood there, frozen, not because he was afraid but because everything he had spent years hiding was finally staring him in the face. Her presence had always done this to him, pulling at something deep inside, something he never dared to name. The soft glow of the blue lights above them made her look almost unreal, like a dream sculpted out of light and breath. She moved closer with slow, careful steps, like she was walking toward something sacred. Her bare feet made no sound on the smooth floor, and he could hear nothing except the sharp rhythm of his own heartbeat, a sound that seemed to echo in the silence around them. She stopped just close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her body, a warmth that made his chest tighten and his mind go blank. He didn't know when things had changed between them. Maybe it was the long nights under the alien moons when their shadows stretched side by side, or the endless hours spent in the station, where the stars were their only witnesses. Her smile had always been soft, never asking for more than he could give, but lately it carried something new, something that made the air heavier. She lifted her hand slowly, fingers trembling slightly as if she wasn't sure if she should touch him. The sight of that hesitation cracked something inside him, because he had felt the same fear for so long. He had buried it, fought it, pretended it was nothing. But tonight, her nearness stripped away every wall he had built. Her skin shimmered faintly as she reached out, and when her fingers finally brushed against his wrist, the touch was gentle but burned like fire. His breath caught, and for a heartbeat, the entire world outside that room stopped existing. He felt the pulse in her fingertips, fast and desperate, matching his own. Their eyes met, and in that single look, there was no need for explanations, no words, no excuses. He saw the truth that had always been there, buried beneath quiet glances and stolen moments. She didn't look away. She didn't flinch. Her expression was calm, but her eyes told him everything. She wanted him to understand. The hum of the station grew softer, fading into the background like a distant song. The air smelled like the rain from earlier, damp and clean, wrapping around them like an invisible blanket. His chest rose and fell unevenly as he tried to speak, but the words got stuck somewhere between his throat and heart. She stepped even closer, her body almost brushing his, and whispered his name again. It sounded different this time, lower, warmer, as if she had wrapped her soul around it before letting it touch his ears. It wasn't just a name anymore, it was a confession, a promise, and a dare. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady the storm building inside him, but when he opened them again, she was still there, waiting, steady, unafraid. The tension between them had grown thick, a living thing that hummed in the air. He had spent so long running from this, convincing himself it was wrong, that what he felt couldn't be real. But the way she was looking at him now made every denial melt away like snow under fire. He could feel her breath, warm and slow, brushing against his lips as she tilted her head just slightly, a silent invitation that made the space between them feel too small, too charged, too alive to ignore anymore. The room felt different now, like the air itself had shifted, thick with something unspoken that wrapped around them like smoke. He could feel the weight of her gaze before he even dared to look at her again. When their eyes finally met, there was no hiding anymore. Her pupils had narrowed to thin rings of gold, glowing softly in the dim blue light, and for the first time he saw everything she had kept buried beneath her quiet smiles. It wasn't just affection. It was hunger, longing, a truth that had lived between them for years but never found a voice. The wind outside brushed against the windows, and the shadows danced faintly on the walls as if the whole universe had leaned in to listen to what came next. She took another step closer, slow, deliberate, her movements smooth like a secret unfolding. Her fingers hovered near his chest, not touching yet, but close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her. He could smell the faint sweetness of her skin, the soft metallic scent that was unique to her kind, a scent that had always lingered in his memory. He felt his pulse hammering beneath his ribs, loud enough that he was sure she could hear it too. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, a soft brush of sound that felt more like a touch than words. She told him she had known for a long time, that every glance, every brush of their hands, every long night spent side by side, had been a slow confession neither of them had dared to name. Her hand finally touched his chest, and the world tilted on its axis. It wasn't just warmth this time, it was a pulse, a deep vibration that slid through his skin like lightning caught in honey. Her people bonded through touch. He had heard the stories whispered in old archives, about how one touch could open a door that could never be closed again. But no story had ever prepared him for this. His breath caught, his hands instinctively rising to her waist, and for a heartbeat they both froze, as if standing on the edge of something neither could return from. Her head tilted back just slightly, her silver hair catching the dim light like threads of starlight. He saw the way her lips parted, not in surprise but in quiet acceptance, as if she had been waiting for this moment far longer than he had. She whispered again, softer this time, and the words hit him like a wave. She told him she had chosen him the moment they first stood beneath the twin moons, that every step she had taken since then had been leading to this night. His chest tightened, the world outside fading, until there was nothing but the sound of their breaths tangled together. His hand moved without thought, fingers tracing the curve of her back, feeling the soft fabric of the thin garment she wore, warm from her skin. Her body shivered under his touch, not from cold, but from something deeper, something that made the space between them burn. She pressed closer, letting her forehead rest against his chest, breathing him in as if anchoring herself to him. He felt the heat of her skin through the thin barrier of fabric, and it was intoxicating, a pull that swallowed logic and left nothing but feeling behind. And then, just as his heartbeat steadied to match hers, she whispered a single sentence against his chest, her voice low and certain, and it made his knees weak. She told him that from this night on, there would be no more running, no more pretending. Their bond wasn't a choice anymore, it was written in the way their hearts beat, in the way their bodies found each other even in silence. It was always meant to be. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was alive, breathing, trembling with every heartbeat they shared. Her forehead rested against his chest, and in that closeness, the world outside the room simply disappeared. He could feel the steady rhythm of her pulse against his skin, the slow rise and fall of her breath matching his like they had been born in the same heartbeat. The lights overhead flickered softly, casting shadows that moved across her face, making her look like something both untouchable and heartbreakingly real. He lifted his hand and slid his fingers through her silver hair, and it felt like silk sliding between his fingers. She didn't pull away. She leaned closer. Her hands moved up, resting lightly against his sides, and he felt every tiny movement like a spark catching dry fire. His breath quickened, and so did hers, as if some invisible line between them had been crossed and neither of them wanted to step back. When she tilted her head up, her golden eyes met his, and there was no more room for doubt. The look she gave him was raw and honest, stripped of all the careful silence she had kept for so long. It wasn't the look of someone unsure. It was the look of someone who had chosen, long before he even realized a choice was being made. The whisper of her name escaped his lips, soft and shaky, and the way she reacted made his chest tighten. Her lips parted, her breath warm against his skin, and she whispered his name in return. But this time, her voice carried weight. It was a claim, a promise, something far deeper than language. She stepped forward until there was nothing between them but heat and breath. His hands slid down her back, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath the thin fabric she wore, and her body responded like it had been waiting for his touch all along. The room itself seemed to lean in around them, the faint hum of the station softening into nothing but a low heartbeat that wasn't really there. He felt her hands slide up his chest, fingers tracing the outline of his collarbone with a kind of tenderness that burned hotter than fire. Every inch of distance melted as she pressed her body against his, and when she whispered again, it wasn't just words. It was a breath against his neck, soft, deliberate, sending a shiver down his spine. She told him she didn't care about the rules, that their bond was real, no matter what their worlds would say. The tension between them twisted tighter, but it wasn't the kind that made him want to run. It was the kind that anchored him, pulled him deeper, made it impossible to look anywhere but at her. His fingers slid beneath the edge of the soft fabric along her back, feeling the warmth of her skin as her breath caught against his throat. Her eyes fluttered closed, her lips brushing the base of his jaw like a secret too powerful to say out loud. He felt everything at once: heat, fear, hunger, relief, all tangled together like a storm that had been waiting for years to break. Her whisper against his skin was barely a sound, but it carried everything she had hidden. She told him she had loved him long before she understood what love meant. That no matter what names their world gave them, nothing could change what was written between them. He felt the tremor in her hands, the quiet shudder of someone who wasn't afraid anymore. And in that moment, he realized he wasn't either. The bond that had hovered between them for so long was no longer a secret. It was fire, warm and unstoppable. The air between them burned like a quiet storm that had finally broken free. Her lips hovered inches from his, so close that every breath tangled, every heartbeat blurred into one. The soft glow of the lights above them bathed her skin in silver and gold, making her look like something carved out of starlight, something both familiar and untouchable. His hands rested against the curve of her waist, fingers pressing gently, feeling her warmth through the thin fabric. She didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. She tilted her head up, her golden eyes locking onto his with a hunger she had never shown before. The quiet ache that had lived between them for years now roared like a fire that refused to be tamed. She whispered his name again, but this time it wasn't soft or unsure. It was full of want, full of everything she had kept locked away in the silence of their shared nights. He felt her breath brush against his lips, warm and trembling, and in that moment the rest of the world became nothing but a distant echo. His pulse thundered in his ears, each beat louder than the last, pulling him closer until the line between them simply disappeared. His forehead pressed against hers, and the soft sound she made was enough to make his knees weak. She wasn't running anymore. Neither was he. Her hands slid up his chest, fingers exploring the lines of his shoulders, his jaw, tracing him like a map she had memorized long ago. Every touch was slow, deliberate, filled with a kind of desperate softness that made the world spin slower. He could feel the heat of her body against his, and when her fingers reached the back of his neck, a shiver ran through him that he couldn't hold back. Her lips brushed the corner of his mouth, not quite a kiss, not yet, but enough to leave the air trembling around them. He let out a quiet breath that sounded almost like a surrender. Her body fit against his like it had always belonged there, like the stars themselves had written this moment long before either of them understood it. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer until there was no space left between them, only the sound of their breaths and the heat of skin on skin. The soft hum of the station disappeared entirely, leaving only the warmth of her against him, the steady drum of her heart pressed to his chest. When she finally whispered against his lips, her words were clear and steady. She told him that no law, no bloodline, no rule could take this away from them, that this bond was theirs alone. He felt the weight of that truth sink deep into him. His hands slid up her back, holding her closer, grounding them both in the moment that felt both like an ending and a beginning. Her breath hitched when his lips finally brushed hers, a touch so light and trembling it felt more like a promise than a claim. Her eyes fluttered closed, and she leaned into it, not with fear but with the quiet certainty of someone who had already chosen. The warmth of her mouth met his in a slow, deliberate kiss that spoke all the things they had never dared to say aloud. The room itself seemed to hold its breath with them, the glow around them softening into a kind of golden stillness. The storm that had been buried between their hearts for so long wasn't a secret anymore. It was real. It was alive. And as her lips lingered against his, as her hands held onto him like he was something she couldn't let go of, he knew that everything had changed. This was no longer a quiet ache hidden in the dark. This was fire, and neither of them wanted to put it out. Her lips lingered against his, warm and trembling, and for a heartbeat neither of them moved. It was as if the entire world had folded itself into that one moment, into the press of their mouths and the shared breath between them. The room was quiet except for the low hum of their joined heartbeat, a rhythm that felt ancient and new all at once. When she finally pulled back just a little, her eyes opened slowly, golden light flickering inside them like liquid fire. She looked at him like she was memorizing every line of his face, like this was the moment she had been waiting for all her life. Her fingers stayed curled against the back of his neck, refusing to let go. She didn't need to say anything. Her touch was louder than any words. He held her there, his hands resting against her back, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath the thin fabric. The air smelled like her, sweet and sharp, the kind of scent that stays with you even after you leave the room. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest, steady, strong, beating in perfect time with his own. She whispered softly, her voice barely louder than a breath, telling him she wasn't afraid anymore. That she didn't care who would whisper outside their walls. That their bond, whatever name the world gave it, was real. It wasn't something to hide in the shadows. It was something to burn for. He pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in, feeling the calm after the storm settle over them like a soft blanket. There was no rush now, no fear, no distance left. Everything that had been kept quiet for years had finally found a voice in a single whisper, a single kiss, a single moment where the stars outside felt a little closer. She smiled against his skin, the kind of smile that reached her eyes, and he felt the last of the walls between them crumble completely. She wasn't just the girl he grew up with on this strange world. She was his home. She always had been. Her fingers slid down his jaw, tracing him like she wanted to keep this moment etched into her hands forever. The glow from the window wrapped around her, soft and golden, and he thought she had never looked more breathtaking. She leaned in again, pressing a soft kiss against the corner of his mouth, a kiss that wasn't hungry like before but full of something deeper. It was trust. It was peace. It was everything they had kept locked away finally let free. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her against his chest, holding her like he would never let go again. Outside, the twin moons hung heavy in the alien sky, their light spilling through the glass and painting them in silver. She closed her eyes against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and whispered that she had always known this was how it would end, not in silence, but in a moment where their worlds would collide and then finally fit. He rested his chin on her head, breathing in the soft scent of her hair, and for the first time in years, there was no weight on his chest. No doubt. Just her. Thank you for listening to this story. If this moment held you the way it held them, if their whispers linger in your thoughts even after the end, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There are more stories waiting beyond the stars, stories that burn with love, mystery, and the kind of connection you never forget. Your journey doesn't end here. It only begins.